The Immortal Council convened in their vast chamber, an ethereal space beyond human comprehension, where every voice could be heard without words and every thought shared without explanation. They were gathered to contemplate humanity's nature, driven by what they'd observed on Earth, the raw and intense lives of those with such finite spans. Their eternal lives had long been peaceful, but some had begun to wonder if they had lost something crucial in their pursuit of endless time. Among them, a younger immortal spoke up, her thoughts carrying a new and striking perspective. "We see humans fighting, grieving, celebrating, loving, all with a fervor we no longer feel. They create, strive, and sacrifice for purposes that we don't understand. But maybe it is their limited time that gives them this passion." Her statement lingered, reverberating in the minds of those gathered. To some, her view was provocative, almost heretical. To others, it held a compelling allure. The elder immortals, ancient beings who had long ago ceased questioning the purpose of their lives, looked at her with a blend of amusement and gentle admonition. One elder's voice echoed firmly, "Why would we wish for a finite existence? We have transcended death." They fight, yes, but out of fear, out of necessity. It's chaos. Mortality brings only desperation, making each act a futile attempt to escape the inevitable. He glanced around, finding agreement in the silent nods of his peers. "We are stable, timeless. We see beyond the fleeting worries of those destined to decay." But the young immortal held her ground. "Perhaps that fear and necessity give them meaning," she replied. "They strive because they know they must. Each of their choices, however mundane, carries weight precisely because they are not infinite." Her words hung in the air, sparking subtle shifts in the expressions of some of the younger council members. Was it possible that their undying nature, their stability, had robbed them of that very thing, meaning? A murmur of voices rose, some members beginning to question in whispers while others resisted. One suggested, "Stability has bred stagnation. We no longer hunger for knowledge, nor do we reach for something beyond ourselves. In their mortality, humans find joy, urgency, and connection. What have we truly gained if we no longer experience such things?" The discussion grew more intense. The elders remained unmoved, however, confident in their belief that their eternal existence was superior, a gift beyond what mortals could comprehend. "Why disrupt this harmony?" another elder retorted, dismissing the notion that an immortal race should envy creatures bound to suffer and perish. "We have conquered life itself, shaped it to our will. Are you suggesting we give up this mastery to taste their misery?" The young immortal looked to her side and saw that she was not alone. A small group of her peers shared her curiosity, feeling an ache within them they could not name. These were not just sympathies but stirrings of a deep desire, an urge to experience something genuine and profound. What if, they wondered, they could choose to step beyond their timeless existence? What if they could understand life as humans did, even if it meant experiencing its end? A bold thought formed among this group: what if they, too, could taste mortality? They exchanged silent glances, uniting in a shared longing. It was dangerous, and they knew the elders would see it as a betrayal. But the idea of understanding the depths of life and death had become an inescapable call. They felt compelled to embrace what humanity offered, a sense of purpose born from impermanence. The council chamber buzzed with conflicting ideas. The elders remained resolute, unwilling to entertain a path that threatened the foundations of their existence. "It is reckless," one elder warned. "To introduce mortality is to invite ruin. We have thrived precisely because we do not fear endings. The thought of returning to such a vulnerable state is absurd." The elder's voice grew softer but sharper, directed toward the young immortal and her allies. "If you desire to know this fleeting existence so badly, you may find yourself no longer welcome here." The young immortal met the elder's gaze without flinching, her resolve deepening. She and her small faction had made their decision. They would not deny their curiosity, nor would they be deterred by the threat of exile. They understood that this was the only way to bring something back to their people, an understanding of the fierce, beautiful urgency that defined human life. With a quiet yet fierce determination, the group began to formulate their plans in secret. They would find a way to alter themselves, to embrace the same cycle of life and death that had given humanity such meaning. To them, it wasn't a loss of stability, it was a chance to truly live. For the first time, they felt a thrill in their purpose, a fire in their hearts. As they departed from the council chamber, the young immortal felt a chill, both thrilling and terrifying, as if she were already feeling the weight of time. They knew this path would change everything, not just for them but potentially for their entire race. Their journey was fraught with danger and uncertainty, but they were willing to embrace it. In hushed whispers, they spoke of an ancient experiment, a forgotten practice long abandoned by their kind. It was said that there was a way to alter one's essence, to take on the limits of mortality. It would be a risk like none they had ever known, yet the allure of experiencing the highs and lows of a finite life was irresistible. As they moved forward, a sense of purpose, of true purpose, began to fill them. They did not yet know if they would survive the transformation or if they could ever return to their immortal brethren. But they knew this choice held the promise of change, not just for them but for their entire race, whose stagnation they hoped to awaken from. The story's end hinted at a shift, a brave experiment to reclaim the meaning of life itself, a step into the unknown that promised to redefine their existence forever. For countless millennia, they had existed, an ancient race so advanced they had transcended illness, aging, even the boundaries of time. Their cities, resplendent in crystal and light, sprawled across their world like veins of iridescent energy. They had achieved what seemed impossible, an existence beyond the touch of death. In their society, life stretched on and on, each day blurring into the next, in a cycle of unchanging peace and order. With technology capable of perfecting and preserving life indefinitely, they had grown indifferent to time's passing. What was the meaning of days and nights when each one was nearly identical to the last? Among themselves, they were known as the Arvani, the Immortals, in their ancient tongue. They wore their agelessness with quiet pride, convinced that their mastery over death placed them above the chaos and fleeting nature of other life forms. To the Arvani, survival was an art form perfected ages ago, leaving little left to pursue. Over the centuries, innovation waned, replaced by serene contemplation and the pursuit of inner harmony. Change was unwelcome, almost sacrilegious, and their traditions held that life, by definition, must be endless, a calm river flowing without end. Death, in this world, was a stranger, a concept the Arvani spoke of in hushed tones, almost like an embarrassing myth. Those who did meet the end were remembered not with sorrow, but with a peculiar mixture of pity and confusion. Why did they succumb to something so unnatural? The Arvani thought they had outwitted death itself, constructing a society immune to its reach. And so they watched the stars in silence, each member of the race confident that they had reached the pinnacle of existence. Then, one day, something extraordinary happened. A faint signal, a pattern of sound and rhythm, reached the Arvani from a distant part of the cosmos. It was clumsy, almost primitive in comparison to their intricate modes of communication, but unmistakably the work of an intelligent species. This discovery sparked mild curiosity, though not urgency. After all, the Arvani were immortal. There was time to explore whatever this phenomenon was, eventually. But the Council of Arvani scholars did convene, their translucent robes sweeping the floor as they debated what to make of the signal. The council analyzed the signal, and a revelation emerged. It had come from a species known as humans. Unlike the Arvani, humans lived astonishingly short lives, scarcely a fraction of an Arvani's first century. Their existence was a whirlwind, with each generation arriving and departing in what seemed like a heartbeat. The council members expressed mixed feelings. Some found humans intriguing, while others dismissed them as a curiosity unworthy of their attention. There was a hint of disdain as they discussed this species that, unlike them, had not conquered the frailties of flesh. "Why should we bother?" one elder scoffed. "A race that cannot even extend its own lifespan is hardly worth the trouble." Another chimed in, saying, "Their existence is like a brief candle, flickering out before it has barely begun. What could they possibly teach us?" But there were voices of dissent. One younger Arvani scholar suggested, "Perhaps there is something we have overlooked. They live such short lives, yet their signal carries across light years. Could it be that they have discovered a purpose in their brevity? Murmurs filled the hall. It was a bold thought, perhaps too bold. The Arvani had achieved near perfection, yet their younger members grew restless, curious about what a life confined by time might feel like. Despite their initial resistance, intrigue won out. A decision was reached: they would meet these humans. Not out of any perceived need or threat, but for the sake of satisfying the Council's curiosity, and perhaps a quiet, unspoken yearning. If humans did indeed experience life so differently, then perhaps there was something in that difference worth observing, if only as a distant spectator. With the Council's approval, a delegation of Arvani prepared to set out to make contact with this peculiar, mortal species. They equipped their ship with their finest emissaries, each bearing centuries of wisdom, and set their minds to observe, study, and perhaps understand how a fleeting existence could have any semblance of meaning. What they didn't know, what they couldn't have imagined, was that this interaction would not merely be an observation. It would ignite a spark within their unchanging world, a spark that would lead some to question everything they had once held as undeniable truths. The humans arrived with a mix of excitement and ease, stepping off their vessel onto the pristine surface of the Arvani meeting hall. Their technology was modest compared to the gleaming perfection of Arvani design, crude even, but the humans wore expressions of wonder and open curiosity, their eyes wide as they took in the otherworldly architecture surrounding them. There was an energy to them, a spark, as they looked around, exchanging quick smiles, nods, and quiet jokes. For them, this was not merely a diplomatic obligation, it was an adventure. The Arvani observed the humans carefully, noting each gesture, every laugh. Their impulsive reactions, unrestrained and lively, were baffling. The Arvani had been trained to remain calm and composed, to show no reaction, no emotion that could disturb the carefully maintained balance of their culture. To them, there was a beauty in stillness, a harmony that came from living in controlled, unchanging rhythms. But the humans moved and spoke as though each moment mattered, as though they had to grasp every bit of life with urgency. Watching this was fascinating and unsettling. The humans seemed vulnerable, almost fragile, yet they acted as if they held the universe in their hands. The council members, draped in their ceremonial attire, welcomed the humans with slow, measured words. The humans listened, nodding respectfully but occasionally exchanging amused glances, clearly unaccustomed to the Arvani's drawn-out formalities. One of the humans, a young woman with a lively expression, broke the silence with a question. "So, what do you all do here anyway?" Her voice was light, almost teasing, but sincere, and the council members stiffened slightly, uncertain how to answer. To them, their purpose was in their very existence. There was no need to do anything, to achieve anything beyond sustaining life itself. The human delegation, sensing the pause, shared a glance. One of the older members chuckled, then quickly explained. "I think what she means is, how do you fill your days? We're used to a bit more activity, you know?" This simple question was met with confused expressions. The Arvani tried to explain their society's emphasis on contemplation and harmony, the way each day flowed seamlessly into the next. But the humans, rather than seeming impressed, looked concerned. The humans spoke about their lives, of challenges, growth, and the need to constantly strive, even knowing that their time was limited. The Arvani listened, unable to comprehend how anyone could live under the weight of mortality, and still embrace such a relentless drive to improve. One human, an engineer with graying hair, mentioned, almost proudly, how humans had managed to reach the stars not because they were strong, but because they kept trying, failure after failure, until they succeeded. The Arvani Council exchanged wary glances, taken aback. The idea of failure was foreign to them. In their world, there was no need to struggle or risk, no drive to innovate. It was becoming apparent that these humans carried an intense need for progress, a need that felt almost chaotic to the Arvani. But as the humans shared their stories, speaking animatedly about their adventures and achievements, the Arvani couldn't help but feel a twinge of curiosity, even envy. To be able to face life's fragility, and still live with such vibrancy, it was something the Arvani had never considered. But while a few council members found the humans' perspective thought-provoking, others looked on with subtle disapproval, seeing their exuberance as naivety. At one point, a younger human questioned the Arvani directly, asking, "If you don't grow, don't change, what's the point? Doesn't life lose its meaning if it's just the same thing, day after day?" The question seemed innocent, but it hit the Arvani with unexpected force. They had long stopped questioning the purpose of their lives, taking for granted that endless existence was purpose enough. But here were these humans, asking them to examine something they had always assumed was complete. The Arvani elders responded slowly, almost defensively, speaking of balance, of harmony, of how their society had transcended the need for struggle. But there was a hint of uncertainty now, a hesitation that had not been there before. The humans' words stirred something in them, an awareness of the void where purpose might once have been, back when their kind still strove for survival. As the meeting drew to a close, one of the human delegates, grinning, made an unexpected suggestion. "Why don't we take a little trip? Explore your world together. Maybe you'll see things a bit differently, maybe we will too." The council members blinked stunned. Adventure? Risk? These concepts were as alien to them as death itself. They exchanged glances, a silent debate playing out. Why would anyone willingly invite the unknown, expose themselves to danger? What could humans possibly gain from such recklessness? The humans looked at them, awaiting an answer, a spark of mischief in their eyes that hinted at more than just diplomacy. And for the first time in centuries, the Arvani were left speechless, wondering, perhaps for the first time, what they might be missing. An unexpected tremor shook the alien facility, lights flickering as systems failed one after another. The Arvani stood frozen, alarmed but unable to act as chaos erupted around them. For the first time in memory, a true accident had occurred. A fault in the ancient power grid had triggered a cascade of malfunctions, and the once perfect environment became hostile. Walls trembled, and strange gases leaked from exposed pipes, filling the air with an acrid stench. For a race unaccustomed to danger, it was as if their world had turned on them. The humans sprang into action almost immediately. They moved with practiced efficiency, shouting instructions to one another and assessing the situation with a confidence born from experience. They weren't panicked but focused, their voices firm and steady as they worked to control the damage. One human grabbed a tool from his belt, moving quickly to secure a gas leak, while another began organizing the group, guiding the Arvani to safer areas. To the aliens, their responses were baffling. How could anyone act so decisively in the face of danger? One of the Arvani, a scholar named Lyrian, stumbled as debris fell around them, hitting his leg and sending him to the ground. He looked at his injury in shock, unable to process the sight of blood. Pain was nearly a foreign sensation, and he felt a wave of helplessness wash over him. In an instant, one of the humans was at his side, kneeling down to inspect the wound with calm focus. She offered a comforting smile, applying pressure to the injury with her hands to stop the bleeding. "Hey, you're going to be fine," she said gently, reaching into a bag to retrieve a bandage. Lyrian watched her with wide eyes, stunned at her composure. She was injured too, a scrape across her arm where she'd protected him from a falling beam, but she didn't seem to notice, or perhaps didn't care. Her entire attention was on him, a stranger from a different world, as if his life was as precious as her own. She wrapped his leg and reassured him with steady words, her hands never trembling. The other Arvani watched in silent awe, observing the human's ability to move, to act, and to comfort one another in the midst of disaster. The sight of their injured companion unsettled them. Such vulnerability felt wrong, a betrayal of everything they believed their race had overcome. Yet the humans were undeterred, almost fearless, tackling each problem that arose with a resilience the Arvani couldn't understand. The humans communicated with quick glances and shorthand phrases, each one responding instantly to the needs of the group. They didn't hesitate to place themselves in harm's way to protect each other or to help an alien stranger. One Arvani elder, shaken by the event, murmured in disbelief. "Why do they do it? Risk themselves for others, for us?" Another Arvani, who had watched the humans' teamwork, muttered. "They seem to draw strength from each other, as if danger is common to them." The humans' resilience was beyond anything the Arvani had ever seen. As the crisis unfolded, the humans even managed moments of humor, laughing off minor injuries or cracking light-hearted jokes to lift each other's spirits. Their laughter echoed in the sterile halls, strange and out of place, but oddly comforting. To the Arvani, it was a revelation. Humans lived with the ever-present shadow of mortality, yet they could find joy and meaning even in the darkest moments. As the humans worked to stabilize the situation, their focus remained unwavering. Another human, seeing Larian's fear, placed a hand on his shoulder and reassured him in a low, steady voice. The compassion in the gesture was startling to the Arvani, who had long abandoned the need for such physical displays. These humans had not only faced danger without fear but had reached out to help others, even when it put them at greater risk. In the hours that followed, the humans managed to contain the situation. They worked tirelessly, patching up damage, stabilizing the systems, and ensuring that everyone was safe. When it was over, the Arvani were left reeling, still in shock from the unexpected events. For them, the experience was more than an accident. It was a glimpse into a world of unpredictability, a world where existence was neither certain nor endless, where one had to choose to keep going despite the risks. As they reflected on the humans' actions, some of the Arvani began to question their own beliefs. One council member, shaken and contemplative, whispered to a companion, "Perhaps their lives hold meaning not despite their brevity, but because of it. They act with a sense of purpose, a drive we have long forgotten." The others listened, uncomfortable but intrigued. Larian, still recovering, looked down at his bandaged leg, considering the bravery he had seen and the kindness he had received. The humans had risked everything, not out of obligation but out of a deep-seated loyalty to each other, and even to strangers. Their resilience, their readiness to face the unknown, had revealed the truth the Arvani had never considered. Perhaps there was strength in embracing vulnerability, in recognizing the value of each fleeting moment. As the humans packed up their equipment, preparing to depart, the Arvani watched in silence, unsettled but captivated by what they had witnessed. A quiet realization began to take root, a question that, once planted, could not be ignored. Had they, in their quest to conquer death, sacrificed something essential? The humans stood ready to depart, their time among the immortals coming to an end. As they prepared to say their farewells, they shared a final, heartfelt message with the alien council, a parting gift in the form of simple wisdom. "Life," a human leader said, voice filled with sincerity, "isn't just about existing. It's about connecting, growing, and embracing everything we don't know." He looked around, his gaze unwavering. "We make meaning out of the moments we have, however brief. Every choice, every step forward holds purpose because our time is limited." The words resonated deeply within the chamber. To the humans, this was natural, but to the immortals, it was profound. They had never considered that an existence shaped by boundaries could hold power or value. To most of them, their unchanging lives felt secure and untroubled, untouched by the mysteries of time. But within the small faction who had dared to wonder, a fire had already been kindled. The humans' words were not just insights, they were a call to action, a final confirmation of what they had to do. In the hours that followed the humans' departure, a decision took root within the faction. They gathered in secret, determined to make their choice real. They had learned of an ancient process, one long forgotten, that could alter their biology to bring about mortality. This choice would cost them their eternal stability, casting them into the unknown, yet they felt compelled to take this step. One by one, they submitted to the transformation, knowing that once done, there was no going back. The moment the first immortal awoke, with a finite life, the air around them seemed different, more vivid. Colors appeared sharper, sounds richer, the feel of their existence profoundly altered. For the first time, they felt the hum of time within them, an awareness that each moment now held weight. Their senses buzzed with the thrill of their own heartbeat, a new understanding settling into their bones. They were now bound to time, bound to an end that they would one day meet. This bold choice sent ripples through immortal society. Those who remained unchanged watched in awe and confusion, unsettled by what their kin had done. For so long, they had known only an existence that stretched on endlessly, devoid of fear or urgency. Now, confronted with this shift, they began to feel the stirrings of doubt, a sense of disquiet about their endless days. Some couldn't fathom why anyone would willingly take on limitations. Others found themselves gripped by a question they had never truly considered: what had they lost by living forever? As the transformed immortals moved among their kin, a quiet revolution began to spread. Conversations that had once been stagnant now held new energy. The immortals found themselves questioning what it meant to live, to truly live. Whispers spread among them, thoughts previously unthinkable. They had watched mortals burn brightly for a short time, leaving legacies and connections in their wake. Perhaps, for the first time, they were beginning to understand what that meant. Then came the day that one of the newly mortal immortals fell ill, an inevitability that would lead to the first true death their kind had ever known. It was an event that would have once been met with horror, but in the presence of the others, the atmosphere was one of reverence. The dying immortal, surrounded by those who had chosen this path, met their final moments with peace, embracing the end as a culmination of their choice. They had lived each moment with purpose, experiencing a life bound by time, by the same urgency they had seen in humanity. As the immortal's life faded, their kin celebrated, not with sorrow, but with gratitude. They honored the life lived, seeing it not as a tragic end, but as the fulfillment of a chosen path. For the first time, they experienced the beauty of farewells, the bittersweet clarity that comes only when something precious is passing. In that moment, they began to understand the human's parting message. The finality that they had once feared now revealed itself as a profound gift, a chance to live in ways that could not be replicated by eternity alone. The legacy of humanity had taken root, and though the humans had long departed, their influence remained. The immortals who had not undergone the transformation continued to observe, reflecting on the changes in their once static world. For centuries, they had existed without questioning, content in their eternal lives. Now, they found themselves grappling with a new vision of purpose, wondering if the path chosen by their kin held something they, too, desired. As generations passed, more immortals began to follow, shedding their timelessness to seek a life they could shape with their own hands. What began as a small faction grew into a movement that changed their society forever. Immortality, once seen as the ultimate goal, no longer held the same appeal. Each choice to embrace mortality was celebrated as a commitment to growth, connection, and transformation. In this new world, existence was not merely about continuation, it was about depth, driven by the desire to make each moment count. In a quiet moment, one elder immortal, who had watched countless transformations with both fascination and trepidation, stood alone, reflecting on all that had changed. A human phrase, once foreign, now felt like a guiding star. It was a reminder of the courage required to embrace the unknown, to live fully without guarantees. Softly, almost to himself, he whispered the words that had sparked the transformation. "Live like there's no tomorrow." And as he spoke, he felt, for the first time in countless ages, a flicker of purpose beyond existence alone. It was a tribute, a promise, and a declaration that even eternity could not contain the boundless desire to live with meaning. The story would carry on, not as an endless line, but as a series of lives, each shaped by choice, each lit by the fire humanity had left behind.